Deviation from the original focus of Jesus' ministry began towards the end of the first century. The early church was largely maintained via an oral tradition, meaning traditions were by word of mouth. Very little was written down. Once the Jerusalem church was destroyed in 70 AD, the Jewish church was scattered. With it, the direct oral teachings of Jesus were scattered. Within a generation, the shift of Christian beliefs would move from its Jewish centric thought to the pagan centric thought of the Roman Empire. Roman religious thinking was very different from Jewish religious thinking. Roman religious thought was based on a contractual relationship with their many gods. Romans were not spiritual at all and only looked to religion as a practical matter. Their religious practices largely revolved around rituals that served the purpose of appeasing their gods or currying favor with them. Their gods were not concerned with individual moral conduct, but rather acted like self-absorbed men. Roman religious life consisted of a number of domestic rituals and prayers absent a moral code. Over time, mainstream Christianity would move in the same direction. Modern Christianity is centered on rituals and the reading of prayers. Compared with what is written in the Bible, our Christian religious practices would be almost unrecognized as Christian by Christ himself. Christ would see a largely Roman religion with a very, very loose relationship to his teachings. And when I say largely Roman, I'm not talking about the Roman Catholic Church. I'm talking about nearly all mainstream churches today, including evangelical churches. Like the Roman religions, modern Christianity focused on the grand bargain. Accept Christ without really defining what that means, get baptized, and you will be saved. Once saved, church attendance, tithing, communion, and a number of other rituals bind you. Prayers are pre-written and repeated in groups. If you mess up, just say you're sorry and all is forgiven. We gather for a meeting, we leave the meeting. And like the Romans, Christianity becomes, quote unquote, practical. And we all get to go, quote unquote, to heaven. The rituals allow us to curry favor with God. The rituals make us feel better about ourselves. When we are in trouble, we can call on God for help. I used to say that most Christians see God as a sort of cosmic Santa Claus. Today, Christian living is comprised mostly of paying our respects to God rather than working to become better people. Christian groups spend more time arguing over who is right on a particular document rather than caring for each other and the poor as Christ commanded. Fortunately for all of us, the teachings of Christ are preserved in the Bible, even if they're more of a background noise at times. When the teachings of the New Testament are contrasted to the teachings of the Old Testament, the message is lost. God did not change who he was for a non-Jewish audience. Much of the New Testament is filtered through a Roman lens, shaping the image of God presented in the writing. Paul is the author of most of the New Testament writings, and as such, sets the larger perspective of how God is presented. Paul was Jewish, but he was also a Roman citizen, which was never explained. He needed to present the gospel in a way that appealed to a non-Jewish audience. He presented Jewish ideas in a Roman context. Jesus taught for 3 years, but Paul was not a follower of Christ while he lived. Paul did not have the benefit of living in Jesus' inner circle. Paul presents the gospel through a Roman lens and only heard the teachings of Christ secondhand. Paul was literate and a competent organizer, and so the church communities that were largely preserved were communities founded by Paul. Organizers tend to win when it comes to history. That said, Paul's writings are still the witness document of a man committed to spreading the gospel of Christ, and as such, they preserve very important teachings. Reading all of the writings of the Bible inform our faith because it takes us into the lives of those who have experienced many of the same struggles that we have experienced. But it is the wrong use of the Bible to focus on scripture and verse, largely out of historical and situational context, which restricts God. When reading the Bible, Stop trying to be so preoccupied with its sacred status and pay more attention to what the writers are trying to say to communicate about their spiritual journey. Let the voice of the past speak to you. The Bible can be messy and hard to understand at times, but it is our guide to discovering a closer walk with God.